We started the sermon series a week ago on finding peace. Through the years, when I listen to people or when we look at some of the prayer cards, when the prayer cards are not about specific issues, I think that maybe the thing that people pray for the most is peace. Peace in our world, but also what I sometimes refer to as serenity, personal peace. How can I find peace in my life? And so this is a series where we are taking 4 sayings of Jesus in very different contexts and very different situations that are really designed to help us bring peace. So we're going to deconstruct these sayings of Jesus in a way that we hope will be very practical, pragmatic in your own life as you seek to find peace. Now, all of these sermons are standalone sermons, but if you want to go back and pick one up, they're all on our website as a video webcast. Our podcast. Today we're looking at a pretty well-known text from the Gospel of Luke, the 10th chapter. Jesus has been traveling through and he stops at Mary and Martha. This is a sister pair, and they're pretty well known in the New Testament to scholars as you read through. Mary and Martha are hosting Jesus. Now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying. You really need to read every word of this text. It's not long, but pay attention to what's being said. She listened. She was sitting there at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks, so she came to Jesus and asked him, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me." And the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary," we put it in bold for you, "Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken away from her." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Not too long ago, I was sitting in a meeting. It lasted about an hour and 15 minutes. I made the mistake. I tell people not to do this, but I did it. I took my cell phone with me. It was sitting there on the table in front of me. And then within a space of an hour and 15 minutes, 2 or 3 phone calls came in. I looked at the numbers. I thought, I got to get this. I had to get up and leave, go take the phone calls. Meanwhile, I had text messages coming over and over and over again. It thoroughly distracted me in terms of the content of the meeting. It was an important meeting. When finally the meeting was over, I got up and I went back to my office. I sat in the chair. I turned on my computer, brought up my inbox, and someplace between 2 and 3 dozen emails had come in that hour and 15-minute period from all over the country. And I started looking at them and trying to answer some of them. And finally, I just sat back in my chair, threw up my hands, and used the Lord's name in a mildly inappropriate way. I said, "God help me." Well, you've been there, haven't you? I mean, the details of your story might be different. Maybe you're a young mother and you're trying to get your preschooler to the Children's Discovery Center, our wonderful preschool over here, and get your 3rd grader to elementary school, and you're driving through the school zone, you're busy, you're late, all of a sudden the red light's behind you, you're so frustrated, you pull over, you say, "God help me." Or maybe you're an aging baby boomer with an aging parent, and it can get tough. There are all sorts of circumstances where we find ourselves just simply over-functioning, trying to stay ahead of things, and we get frustrated. Oddly enough, when you look at this text, this is exactly what Martha said to Jesus. Now, you don't have to be a genius to figure out Martha's personality here. She's what I call a beautiful type A. Jesus has entered her house. She's known throughout her village as being the best hostess in town. She's got the oven going, her best Texas pecan pie in the oven. She's got it timed. It's going to be perfect. She's cleaning and dusting. She's washing the best china and dishes. She wants everything to be perfect for Jesus. But there comes this point when she is just kind of overwhelmed with all the duties and tasks that she has set for herself, and she looks over there and she sees Mary sitting at the foot of Jesus. I see this real clearly in my mind. Jesus is sitting on the couch, and Mary is sitting at his feet, and she's just listening. She looks over there, and she loses it, and she goes over to him, and she literally says to him, "God help me." She says, "Jesus, can't you help me? Please get Mary up off of her duff." And Jesus says a remarkable thing. He says, "Martha, you are busy, busy, busy. You are distracted and anxious about many things. Mary has chosen the better part. It will not be taken from her." What did you suppose he meant by that? Now, 3 weeks ago, I think it was, before we got into this sermon series, I preached about a text from John that we call the man at the pool of Bethsaida. If you weren't here, you don't know that story. I'll summarize it real quickly. Jesus is walking along. He comes to this place known as Bethsaida. There's a pool that has water in it that is rumored it'll heal diseases and heal paralysis and so forth. And he comes upon this man who's been there, I think it was 38 years, or he's been there a long, long time. Just says he's been there a long, long time. And this man has a pretty bad story to tell. He says, "I'm here, I'm trying to get myself well, but every time I get ready to go get in the waters, somebody gets in front of me. I'm never able to do it." He presents as a person who's really, really passive, a kind of person who has a victim mentality in life. And the response to Jesus to this man is so interesting. He doesn't touch him, he doesn't heal him. It's the only place we see this in the New Testament. But Jesus is pretty tough on this guy. He basically says, "Get up off your rear. If you want to get well, do you want to get well?" He says, "Yeah, then get up off your rear and get on with life." He challenges him. In other words, in the context of our story for today, he tells the man at Bethsaida, "You need to be more like Martha." And then here in this story about Martha and Mary, there's Mary sitting over there, just like the man at the pool of Bethsaida. She's passive. She's not doing anything. She's not out saving the world. She's not helping with the dishes. She's not cleaning. And he says to Martha, "You need to be more like Mary." Sometimes the Bible can get kind of confusing. What is it that Jesus is asking of us? Well, one of the things that we understand when we start looking at this story between Martha and Mary and even the man at the pool of Bethsaida is that there are all sorts of different personality types. I don't know about you, but I love personality tests. We take them around here sometimes on staff. There are a lot of good personality tests, and in my opinion, almost all of them are interesting. You always learn something important about yourself, and amazingly, most of them are pretty accurate. I think if you've taken a personality test of some kind, I think you'd probably say, "Yeah, it pretty much nailed me." But I kind of have this person, I'm a simple man, so I just divide people into two different groups. I see there are two different kinds of people in the world. There are those like the man at the pool of Bethsaida who need to stop being so passive and to take some control in their lives. And then there are the type A's, the beautiful type A's like Mary, who are trying to do everything in the world to control their entire environment, and they need to give up some control in life. Am I right? And you know which one you are, don't you? You either need to give up control in life or you need to take some control in life. And that's what we find here in these wonderful stories about Jesus and the man at Bethsaida and Mary and Martha. And what Jesus really is going for is some balance in life. Because we know what happens to the Marthas in life. At their best, I call them beautiful type A's. They're the kind of people, frankly, that we like to hire here on the CUMC staff. You give them a deadline, you don't have to write it down in your calendar, you know it's going to get done. You give them a job, you know the outcome's going to be what you're looking for. Give them a project. Just let them run with it. It's what I call hiring somebody, giving them a job, and let them do it. We don't supervise people very closely around here because we love those type A's. But the problem with those who take so much control in life, they can get a lot done, but sometimes they can lose a sense of balance in life, and life can get painful. A number of years ago, I got to this place in my life. People who know me say, boy, Don can handle a lot of stress in life, and for the most part I can. But there came this moment in my life where things were really stressful in my work, and there were things going wrong in my personal life, and there were just all sorts of things that were causing a lot of stress for me, and things were getting out of control, and I kept trying to fix it. I mean, I've always been able to fix things, right? So I was trying to fix things in my family life. I was trying to fix things up here at the church. And finally, just to be honest about it, I just found myself descending. And so I'll tell you what I did. I took my own advice. It's the advice I've given to some of you. I called up a friend of mine who's a therapist, and I said, I need to come in and talk with you. So we made an appointment. I went in and I sat down in the chair across from him, and he said, what's going on? And I started going down the list of all these things that were taking place in my life and just expressing my frustration. And I would tell him over and over again, I've always been able to fix things. I can't do it. And so finally, I did all this talking, and finally, therapy's not rocket science. He just took what I said, and he said, well, let's go down that list. So we talked about the first thing, and he said, do you really think you have any control over that? And I said, well, no, I don't think I do. Then we got to the second thing. Do you have control over that? No, I don't think so. It was kind of an eye-opener for me. And so I went to see him for a couple of months maybe, and it got to where when things would start really kind of deteriorating and getting bad, I'd call him up. I said, I need to come in and see you. I'd sit in the chair across from him, and I would take maybe 8 or 9 minutes to tell him what was going on, the latest episode and all of the chaos in my life. And I'd go over it, and then I'd look at him and I'd say, I don't have any control over that, do I? And he'd say, no, you don't. I'd say, that's all I need to know. And I'd get up and I would leave. Let me tell you something. If you think therapy is expensive by the hour, you ought to pay for it by the minute. But that's what happens, isn't it? When Jesus looks at Martha and says, you are worried and distracted by many things, he's just saying that life is out of balance for you. And you might be thinking, okay, all this makes sense to me, but is this psychology or is this spirituality? And my answer to that question would be yes. Would be yes. That we are stronger emotionally and mentally when we are rooted in our spiritual connection to God. So let's finish this up and see what it is that Jesus says. He says, Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken from her. And when you read this text carefully, this is what Luke tells us about Mary. She is sitting at the feet of Jesus and listening to him. She is listening to God. I wonder how many of us really take that seriously as a part of our discipleship, our decision to follow Jesus. If we are really careful to spend some time listening to God. We make all sorts of requests to God. But Mary was listening to God. I've said this on a number of occasions lately. Over the last few years, The most important insight I have about what it means to be a disciple of Jesus, which means that's nothing more than making the decision to follow Jesus. The most important insight I have is that it has to be done every day, every single day on a daily basis. It's not good enough to come to church on Sunday mornings, even if you make it every Sunday morning. It's not good enough to come to church on Sunday mornings and to come to the Advent services on Wednesdays or go to the Tuesday night Bible study. In order for your faith to have power in your life, in order for spirituality to be the guiding force in your life, you have to practice it every single day. And there are lots of ways of doing it. You can read the Bible, you can pray. I wrote an entire book on the Lord's Prayer, saying all you really have to do is to start with, you can just get up in the morning, if you'll just start with saying the Lord's Prayer. That's a beginning. You can meditate, but whatever it is, you have to start every day to say, God, this day comes to me as a gift. I thank you. And let me listen for just a moment to how it is you want me to live in the kingdom of God on this day. Listening to God every single day will bring balance to your life, and it will change you forever. My therapist, who happens to be a dedicated Christian, committed Christian, became my preacher. At the end of that first session, he said, Don, you know Niebuhr's prayer, don't you? A lot of you, put it up here, Ben, a lot of you think this prayer is anonymous, but it's not. It was written by Reinhold Niebuhr, one of the great theologians of the 20th century. He said, you might practice saying this prayer every day for a while. So I don't care whether you read a psalm every day or whether you say the Lord, begin every day with the Lord's Prayer or just in silence, but Niebuhr pretty well nailed this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference. That's what I call spiritual balance. It's not a bad way to start your day. It's not a bad way to live your life.